My guest today is Ben Harmanus, Head of Brand Marketing, EMEA at HubSpot. Before HubSpot, he was a marketing leader at Helpling, Unbounce, Conversion Craft, and Go Group. Ben is also currently running HubSpot's digital Helpdesk podcast and is the author of the best-selling conversion book, Content Design. Welcome, Ben. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's funny because in a previous conversation you told me that when you started at HubSpot about a year ago or so, right?
Yes, yeah. By the end of November 2019.
Yeah, that you kind of came in, and while you were expected to shake things up a bit and try your own stuff, it was a bit of an uphill battle to also in a big company like HubSpot to kind of get that change going. And you had to fight a bit for the freedom and creativity that you have to date, running the podcast and everything. And I would love to start there because I think it kind of sets the right tone for our conversation. Can you bring us back to the day that you started at HubSpot and kind of tell us how it all played out and where you are today?
Sure thing. So yes, good point. I was not sure if I fit into the team and the company, and I knew I wouldn't find out, and I would always ask myself if HubSpot was a good fit if I wouldn't try. So I signed up and I would say, I had this role that was not clearly defined because I was called Principal Marketing Manager at that time. So that job title isn't telling much about what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, every time I met a new person, I had to briefly introduce myself, tell what I'm doing, why I'm here. And it wasn't quite clear what I'm doing, but I was given the chance to run experiments. So HubSpot is very strong when it comes to SEO, to lead generation. We're basically, what we preach is what we practice, right? Like we have this huge lead gen machine running. We are authorities among inbound marketing experts, as our founders, Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah, are the founders of the inbound marketing methodology. They even wrote a book about it and so on. So for everyone not knowing, listening today, but there is a famous saying: if your only tool is a hammer, you will see nails everywhere, right? And that is where I had to shake the team a bit up, because I came in and I was like, hey, let's do things differently. I feel a podcast is very important for the brand, even though it's hard to track down how many leads we're generating with it and what the return on investment would be. I pushed to get a podcast. And I have to say, my manager, Inken Kuhlmann-Reno, she always backed my ideas up, because that's why she wanted me to work for HubSpot. But for the team, it always felt like this extra load of work and this project they've never done before. And of course, at some point, I understood how much pressure it was to run the side project and push this project and put all these projects into your daily doing. But eventually, everyone saw results coming in. And today, the podcast, which is the first German HubSpot podcast, it was the first podcast outside of North America. So it was the first one not being in English. But we can clearly see results coming in. We did the digital marketing kickoff, a virtual conference, which I've been doing for 4 or 5 years. And I brought this project to HubSpot. And it's about female empowerment and women in tech. And it's I really have to say it's one of my most important projects I'm doing, because I feel women in tech and marketing are underrepresented. And it totally fits the HubSpot culture to empower women. So this was a great fit. And I put this project exactly when COVID-19 hit Europe. on everybody's desk. And we pulled it off in like 6 weeks to create this huge virtual conference, because I said, it doesn't make any sense to do this in October. At that time, it was like February, March. And I was like, people need a virtual conference now. So let's do it in May. So we pulled it off in 6 weeks, and you can imagine the friction. So I truly have to understand why not everybody was very happy to have this virtual conference hosted, speaker sourcing, then all the expectations I put on everybody, because I wanted this to be an outstanding, great event. But at some point, everybody was so hyped and juiced that they put in more ideas. So they put ideas on my desk. And I feel everybody did a great job, because eventually they started challenging me. And this is what I love to see, because I'm not here to just challenge people. I want people to challenge me as well. So I feel at some point there was friction, but then people challenged me, and I couldn't say no, even though I felt like, oh my God, this is a 10-hour day already, but we have to do this. I want to have this with DMK. I want to have this in my conference. So yeah, friction in the beginning, but now we've seen results coming in, and the DMK had almost 12,000 subscriptions. So awesome. People sign in on it, and 5,000 watched it live. So it was a huge success for the EMEA team. And that's why we kick off the DMK 2021 ideas tonight, and we'll be working on the event for next year, because everybody wants to do it again. Even more teams globally are joining on that. And sometimes you just have to prove that things are working, and you get everyone on board for the next time.
This is interesting, right? I mean, like, we talked about this in our last conversation off the air. What do you think makes you kind of successful at launching new project and even incubating them in a big company like HubSpot?
I think working for HubSpot, it's the biggest company I've worked for ever. Mm-hmm. I've worked for companies of a size of like a couple of hundred, like 200, 300, 400 to 500. Now it's more than 4,000, and the marketing team is as big as like other companies I've worked for. It's like 300 to 400 people now. So for me, it's new as well. I have to try new stuff and have way more stakeholders to talk to. Mm-hmm. But going back to your question, I think I'm quite resilient. Like I think when there is no impossible for me. Like when I want to do things and I see an opportunity, I just grab it and I try to convince everyone that this can work. Of course, you need some proof, you need data. At HubSpot, we're obsessed with data. Like you need to make a case and you have to tell people why you think this would be working. And then I try and push and work on it. And I think people love that I never give up and that I always try and find new ways and new perspectives to look at stuff. And my ideas it's not just based on like luck or just gut feelings, of course, a bit, but then I try to show people why I believe this is going to work. And it's not always for example, HubSpot is a technology company. It's a CRM platform. But I don't look at other platform companies and try to replicate what they do because they were successful. I try to think outside of the box and look at other companies, even outside of tech industry, and tell people, you see, they are successful doing it. And my thought is, I don't see why this wouldn't be working in our industry or wouldn't be working for HubSpot. And unless we don't find a reason why it wouldn't be working, why wouldn't we try? Because this is a huge opportunity. No one's doing it. The same with our podcast. It's a brand podcast. And I see so many doing it and they're not successful for many good reasons. And then I tell people, I see why it's not working. And I believe we can make it work because of A, B, and C. And I think this is it. People see that I never give up. I work hard to make it happen. And I always try to go the extra mile because I'm 100% customer centric when I plan. Like when I see opportunity, I'm always customer centric, and I always challenge people and I say, but this is what people want. They want us to be on a podcast. They want us to host this huge conference. They want to see companies make a stand for female empowerment. So this is what's driving me. And I think this is what people love about me, that all this fire that I have inside of me, always pushing for it.
And this like foot in the door, like how do you kind of phrase the test that you're trying to run? You know, I mean, are you saying like, you know, let's do a podcast and then let's see in 3 months? These are the metrics I'm going to track, or how do you go about that?
With the podcast, it was very special because I felt HubSpot is missing out on this very important distribution channel. We have this huge blog, it's driving millions of views per month. And then we have webinars, and we did some live social media events. So I feel if you don't have a podcast, you're missing out on an audience that loves to listen to you or loves to listen to content. And especially now that HubSpot is moving more up market, I could easily explain, think of yourself as a manager. Do you have time to watch this webinar or read this article? Or do you jog, go by car, and you listen to a podcast because somehow you have to make use of this time as a manager to consume content? With the podcast, we created it when COVID-19 hit everyone. And I said, now is the time to have all these projects to help people. And I feel the DMK, the Digital Marketing Kickoff, female empowerment, having topics that can now help people to be successful in these uncertain times. We have to do this now. And the same with the podcast. I was like, the Digital Helpdesk has that name for a good reason, because we thought now is the time we should launch it, because maybe people are looking for guidance when it comes to remote work, home office, virtual conferences, goal setting, digitalization. And I thought, let's launch it now, because people might want to look for podcasts to help them in these times. We've seen it in Germany, where one of these specialists in virology, he became very popular among doctors because he had a podcast, and this opened the door for more people to listen to podcasts. And I was like, let's do it now. Now is the time. And we didn't have, to be very honest, I didn't have many metrics in the beginning, because we just knew we had to do it anyways. So there wasn't a question, should we do it or not? But at some point, I got like a feeling what the market is, how successful other podcasts are, how quickly we can grow. And then after a month, after 8 weeks, we realized, okay, we want to speed up growth. So for the next quarter, we want to grow by 100%, because we see it's possible. We are not there yet, but if we push a bit harder, we can get there. And actually, we achieved this goal last quarter, that we grew by more than 100% when it came to downloads.
Awesome. Like, and this is interesting, right? Because like a lot of marketers, I know also who are listening to this podcast, are kind of forced to mostly engage in performance marketing, and always have this like tug war with brand marketing, where podcasts kind of fall in. So what kind of, now that you said in the beginning, you didn't much went into it with like certain metrics in mind necessarily. Today, like what is, whether that's for you yourself, or for if you have to do any reporting on the numbers, like what do you look for? Like how do you gauge the success of the podcast?
Yeah, it has quite changed. Now we have so many metrics we track. You're a podcaster yourself. You know for yourself how hard it is to have proper metrics when it comes to podcasting. Basically, you have this Frankenstein document that I have, and I pull in all the metrics I can find from Apple iTunes, from Spotify. We use the Libsyn platform to publish the podcast, so we get some metrics there, but it's not really aggregating all the metrics you can have. So what I'm looking at is follower growth, month over month. Of course, IAB downloads, that's a standard in podcasting where you can be pretty sure that if you track IAB downloads, it's different people on different devices listening to you. So it's a lower metric, but it's more accurate. Then I also look at Apple charts. I know some people say don't, but for me, it really helps to see if we are getting traction in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And lately I've seen we are among the top 10 podcasts in all 3 countries. Awesome. So for me, this is a good sign to see that we are getting traction. We've been number 1 once in marketing in Switzerland. So I really like to see that.
Yeah.
We've been number 2 in Austria, but I think the best, looking at the chart right now, is 6th place in Germany. So that's
pretty good.
It's pretty good. You shouldn't obsess over it because you can easily go up and down on charts, but I think it's the overall, looking at the overall development and see that you are among the top 20, top 10 week by week. So that's a good sign, I feel.
It's interesting, like especially in the beginning, I really like to, just to augment your answer, what I like to look at in the beginning especially is how much engagement is there in terms of like, are people actually asking questions? Like, are they like reaching out? Are they, is there kind of a dialogue happening? Also not to get discouraged in the beginning when the numbers are not super high. So I feel like engagement is a good metric as well.
It is a good metric. It's just so hard to create that kind of engagement with podcasts, because if people listen on it on Spotify, there's no way to give you.
It's not social, right? Yeah,
it's not social. They can't give you feedback immediately. I think I saw Spotify's working on it, and their original podcast, they have it that you can have these surveys and stuff. So I would love to test that, because you can send out a survey and ask people, hey, how did you feel about this episode? Do you have ideas for the next episode and stuff like that? I would love to see more of that. But so far it's coming in through email. It's coming in through LinkedIn, and it's getting more lately. The feedback is getting more, and it's very interesting that people even talk about how they love the music or that specific topic. So it's very tiny things can make a difference. And that's very, very interesting, because we thought about the music and discussed, hey, should we use a different track? And I was like, so far, we don't know. Maybe everyone who's listening right now to the podcast just loves it because they love the intro music. This could be. So if we change it, then everybody who loves it right now would be some kind of like confused why we changed it. So unless we ask people, so we are working on a survey right now, and we want to send it out and ask people. Unless we do that, I wouldn't change it. I would only change stuff where I really obviously know it's annoying.
Right.
But other than that, if I don't see anything in the metrics, I don't see people leaving, or basically everybody leaving after the first 5 seconds. I know there's nothing I should be changing right now. So
yeah. I mean, it's really a pity that there is not a real like social podcasting app yet. I mean, the best I have seen, not tried myself because I think it's still closed beta, is this Clubhouse app. I don't know if you've heard about, like, where it's kind of live podcasting with commenting and stuff like that, which I think is a really interesting way to go about it. Like, it would basically be like we would talk now, and then in the app it would be live and people could like comment and stuff like that. I just think it would make the podcasting experience so much better down the line as well.
It would. I'm pretty sure it's for Spotify. I'm sure it's coming. They're working on so many things to make Spotify the go-to podcast platform. So would be weird if they wouldn't be working on a way to interact and force people to use the Spotify app to get connected to the hosts and vice versa. I've looked into Clubhouse, but not fully tested yet. And it's funny that you mention it, because I feel for 2021, audio branding and audio in general is going to be a huge thing. I've been working, I just finished my work on the re-release of the content design book. And working on the book, I realized I wrote about blogging, and Robert Weller and we wrote about blogging, wrote about logo design, we wrote about all things content, but totally missed out on audio. And I feel in content marketing, not many people are talking about audio in general. Now they talk about podcasting, but audio is so much more than just podcasting, right? It even starts with your jingle on your intro music and voiceovers in videos and all that. So with the rise of more social audio apps, I see 2021 is going to be huge for audio, and brands have to think about how your brand is perceived just listening to the brand. And if you for yourself can imagine your brand, how it sounds, then you basically are not there for people that tend to listen to content rather than just reading or watching. So I think it's going to be huge, and I'm working on audio branding for HubSpot a bit more for 2021.
That's interesting. Like, so just before we went live, you mentioned that you are now what did you say, like head of brand marketing EMEA at HubSpot. Just announced like yesterday, you said, right?
Yes.
So what for you, if you think about the branding aspect of HubSpot, like what besides audio, like what kind of feeds into that?
Besides audio, I think the HubSpot brand is a strong brand when it comes to marketing. Marketing, especially marketing automation and inbound marketing. But I feel there is a misconception, because HubSpot has outgrown being that inbound marketing company. But when I ask people, like people in marketing, they know the company and they know it for marketing automation, but it's a CRM platform with customer service tools, sales tools, CRM. There's so much, a content management system. It's so much more, but people outside of the marketing community, they don't know too much about the brand. So I feel it's a brand when it comes to marketing, but it's more, and we have to shift the perception that with HubSpot you can change your marketing. You can basically change all touch points that you have. You can influence your whole customer experience, and that's a whole different game with a whole lot of like different competitors. And for me, I feel like it's a long way to go in EMEA to change that perception. And then the other part is not just the product, it's culture. We have a strong culture that we believe in at HubSpot. And I feel sometimes inside the company, it's clear to everyone, but we could do more to make people know that we have this kind of culture and have people love the brand for the people that are working at HubSpot, because we're very purpose driven. We want to make people grow. We have diversity and inclusion is very important to us. There's so much stuff going on in the culture. It's not just written on paper. We live it every day, and we challenge each other. Every time someone comes up with an idea, we ask, like, how is this solving for the customer? Like, this idea, is this just for us to make us grow? Is this helping the customer? Or is this helping a partner and his clients or her clients? So, and I think we could do more to tell people these stories, because these days I feel, and especially with new generations, millennials and younger, they want to see these companies. They want to follow companies for the people that are working at the company. They want to follow companies with strong CEOs, CMOs, executives, spokespersons. So I feel all this is brand as well. It's not just the content we do. It's not just an ebook you download. It's It's basically everything. Every touch point is brand, and we have to be aware of this.
And it's interesting, like oftentimes you have to go through people as a brand. I mean, like I remember the first time I've been to the Inbound conference in Boston. And to me, there it was kind of apparent oftentimes because there were so many HubSpot employees, and you could kind of get a feel for the company. But now, I mean, doing that online, also now that COVID is kind of on have some uncertain times ahead of us still in terms of events and stuff like that. I think audio and kind of story about the people inside the company are really a good way of showing people what a brand is about, because it kind of humanizes it a lot, right? So you're no longer just a inbound marketing company. And I totally see that. I mean, like if someone asks me, that's what I would say about HubSpot still, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. People, and I think there are studies out there that have shown that people that are winning in times of COVID-19, they have these spokespersons out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't duck and just wait for things to go away. And now we know it isn't going away quickly, as we are now basically in a second lockdown or lockdown light, or
Mm-hmm.
it depends on where you are right now. I'm not even sure what's going on in Switzerland right now, to be honest.
We are kind of, how do you say, trailing behind most countries at the moment in terms of the statistics, cases per 100,000, and we're trying to avoid a second lockdown, even if it's a mini lockdown. That's kind of the status right now. But I was just talking to someone yesterday from the UK. They go into lockdown tomorrow. So yeah.
Absolutely, yes. The same with our colleagues in Ireland. Everything's locked down already. And in Germany, cases are going up, and it's even worse than in March, April, and May. I think it's twice as bad. So, but yeah, I think people want to see these spokespersons. They want to see people rising up and talking on LinkedIn or whatever. And I'm impressed when I see someone from, let's say, Vodafone, like stepping up, making this difference, and just telling how they feel about the situation in many ways, not just COVID, but make a stand for, like, when it comes to racism or other stuff, just relevant topics that bothers us these days. I've listened to a podcast, I don't know where, but the CEO of VD, do you know that brand? It's like bags and stuff and outdoor clothing and stuff. VD. Antje van Dewitz, she's the CEO, and I listened to this podcast, and I'm so honest, I love this brand now even more than I did before. But she's so interested in like diversity and sustainability, and she told the whole story how she took over as the daughter of the founder, and that this is causing friction, but she's totally pushing for sustainability, and it's ending up in having more costs, of course, because it's not easy to have sustainable clothing and be a CO2 friendly company. But listening to that made me try. I'm going to be a spokesperson now for this company, because I tell everybody how much I love VD, because this person is heading into the right direction, in my opinion. This is very personal. But we want to see more of that. And I think this is where companies are missing out on an opportunity if they don't.
I agree. Like, it doesn't even, whether it's that company that speaks to your values, or any other company that kind of, puts out other values. I think, like, if you next time you think about buying new clothing or a new bag, and you have to choose between a company that puts their values out and they kind of vibe with you, and like kind of a how do you say, like an anonymous company in a way where it's just about the product, I think the decision oftentimes, even if it's more expensive, is clear, because you're like, oh, okay, so there's this company that I can identify myself with. So that's where it's easier to kind of connect to a brand. And so you kind of need the people, also people like you, who are out there and kind of representing HubSpot in a way. And so that's why I think I really like that there is so many people inside companies now that kind of do their personal branding thing. It really helps the companies as well. It really does. Yeah.
I think so too. This is why I believe every company needs a strategy when it comes to spokespersons and employer branding.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's I spoke to Dr. Kerstin Hoffmann once. She wrote a book about corporate influencing. And she said, and this is one very important sentence, there can't be no spokesperson for your company. It's just, it's impossible not to have corporate influencers, because every time someone of your company is somewhere visible and people know that person is working for the company, it's your corporate influencer. It's that person that's reflecting what you stand for, maybe. So either if you care and if you have the spokesperson program or not, corporate influencers are out there and they represent your company. So you can either help them to be successful at doing so, or you just ignore the fact, and then people are just running around sharing different messages, and it's going to be a fragmented image of your company. So you have to run a program, you have to help them, you have to support, and you have to build these spokespersons for your company.
That's really interesting, because I mean, I've never heard that concept. I think like a company is basically like a person, and if you as a person put out all kinds of different signals, it's very difficult for other people to connect with you, because if you can't, like, if you don't stand for something in someone else's mind, it's very difficult for them to kind of latch on to something. And I think it's the same with a brand as well. So I actually think this is very smart, because it happens anyways. It's so true.
It happens anyways, and you cannot stop your team from talking online. Like it's a social media world, and especially with the rise of, I feel, LinkedIn, you have so many spokespersons out there talking, and you're visible day by day. Imagine if HubSpot is a 4,000 people company, and people love the brand so much, they're very outgoing and they want to talk on social media. You would just say, hey, don't do this. I mean, how would people feel about it? Like if you would just say, I don't want you to talk about it because we can't control what you're doing, stop talking. So how would that feel? Like, so it's happening anyways. So what you can do is to support people and make sure there's alignment. So everyone knows where we are heading. Everybody knows about the messaging, because when I joined, even for me, as I would consider myself like an expert in the marketing industry, to me, HubSpot was more like a marketing tool, but that was just my bubble. Right. And it's very important that I'm aligned, and I know when I talk about HubSpot, it's a CRM platform. It's way more than marketing. And if I'm not aligned, I tell everybody in my network, hey, this is a great marketing company. So I'm responsible for misleading messages and heading into the wrong direction. This is good when executives tell me, like, this is the messaging, this is the brand. So I know, and I can adapt, and I can send a message that fits the overall brand idea that we have.
Let's shift gears a little bit and kind of coming back to you. You mentioned in the very beginning that one of your strengths is kind of this resilience. And you told me that you've kind of got that from the world of sports initially.
That's true.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How you think you've built this resilience, and how it kind of manifests today?
Sure. My marketing career began in extreme sports. I started quite late with inline skating, with rollerblading in the 90s, the extreme version of it, called aggressive inline.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, that's what it's called. Aggressive inline, yes.
Aggressive inline, wow.
Yeah, at some point we spoke about rollerblading because we felt like in the media it's perceived as a very aggressive thing.
Yeah.
So we switched and we spoke about rollerblading. We even spoke about progressive blading at some point.
Sounds better than aggressive, yeah. I agree.
It does. Yeah, so what it is you jump down stairs and you slide down a handrail with your rollerblades. It's basically what people know from BMX or skateboarding. And yeah, and this is where I think I've been resilient before that, but I think I've become even more resilient doing the sport, because what happens to you is there's no day where you don't fail. Like you try a new trick and you try to grind on that curb with your rollerblades or on that handrail and you fall, because there isn't a day that you're not trying a new trick. So you fall, and most times you fall more than you succeed to get.
Probably a lot, right?
Probably not. So yeah, if you spend 3 hours rollerblading or 4 hours, you hang out with your friends and you try a new trick, you fall 100 times. Like, of course, you learn how to fall. It's like judo or like any other like martial arts. You learn how to fall, and it looks worse to everyone outside of rollerblading. But you fall and you hurt yourself, and you get up and you try again, and then your friends are cheering and they support you, and you film it. So once you land the trick, you have it on video and you can share it online. So this is pushing you very hard to be successful. And this is where I have learned to be resilient, because in rollerblading, and especially in extreme sports, you live for trying a new trick. It's like when I did rollerblading, I even had the chance to invent new tricks that no one has ever seen before. I even could, because it's a very creative sport, we did street skating. So what you do is you just roll around in your city and you look for a new spot, so you can try a new trick, and you can be sure no one ever did that trick on that handrail or did that wall ride or jump down these stairs. So I've done that many, many times. And even sometimes people said that physically it's not possible to do the trick. And that even pushed me a bit more to prove it's possible. And I said, I'm not a stone. I'm not a stone you throw. I'm a human being. I can bend in the air and tweak and land the trick. So, and what you need is the imagination that you can land it. And I always have these images in my head where I just see myself landing the trick. And I also see myself failing. So I see myself failing and I see what's the worst thing that can happen. Okay, this is like a 5 meter down fall. What could happen? Is there like a pole down there? Is it grass? Is it stone? Like, what if I fall? Where can I land? How can I grab myself? So what's the worst thing that can happen? And then I try to imagine that. And once I went through failing, I've learned that I failed already. So in my mind, I failed already, and I found out it's not too bad. So basically, I already smashed on the concrete in my head. And I realized, okay, I land on my feet. It's not too bad. You can try. And then I try, and sometimes I failed and I grabbed that handrail and I didn't fall down 5 meters. So once this happened, I knew, okay, I can do this. So it all starts in your head to do some kind of like risk management. And I think I'm doing this. I still do this because I imagine, okay, we can try this, but what happens if I fail?
Right.
Oh, it's not too bad. So let's try it. So I think this is what still sticks with me, to imagine things and then just try it and prove it's possible.
I think it's just such a perfect analogy to business as well, and unfortunately it's not as easy to imagine as, like, of course, if you learn to rollerblade, you fall, but it's much less apparent in the business world because people are actually very, very afraid of like looking bad, especially when you say all your friends are around but you're kind of expected to fall,
Absolutely.
whereas in the business world, this is just not the case. And I think that's why I really like this sports analogy a lot. And especially in sports, in extreme sports, because you are trying something extreme. So like, you better expect to fail. And two things that I really like, is one thing that really stuck with me that you just said before is like, you are learning how to fall, and I think like, why not kind of learning how to fail or to fall also in other parts of your life? It's not as bad. You can get back up and you can actually learn to fail better if you want, and kind of
like
get back up faster. Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard that before. I think learning how to fall, that's very interesting. I need to think about that a bit more. And the second thing is this kind of pre-mortem that you mentioned. It takes so much energy out of something scary when you kind of imagine yourself failing beforehand. It's like all this doomsday scenario has already played out in your head. And whether that's sports, the same in business you just mentioned, okay, so, you try something out, like you try a new event series or something like that, and it doesn't work. Like, okay, so what's actually the worst case,
What's the worst case? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the chance, and the chance that it happens is almost zero anyways. Like, how many times does actually the worst case come to fruition? Usually it's like something in between. If you fail, it's not like the worst case almost never manifests. But yeah, those two things really, I think it's interesting. That's why I like these kind of analogies. Sorry, yeah, you were saying?
I was just thinking, yeah, it's like people, like, we talk a lot about transformation and digital transformation, that especially now during times of COVID, or like everything is accelerating right now. So we have to try new things. And it would be good for people to realize you won't transform without friction and without pain. It's not going to happen. There will be pain. And if you start to accept that, it's going to be painful because what you're trying to accomplish is the impossible. So if you think about that, be fair to yourself. Transformation is achieving the impossible in your company. So it's very likely you can fail, and at some point, some piece of it will just fall apart, and it's going to be hurtful. And people might be leaving because they don't believe in what you're doing right now, and transformation will come at some cost. So accept it, and then it's going to be easier to do it because you are prepared. As you said, like I did pre-mortem, I already failed. I fell. Basically I died. So in my head, and I'm not kidding here, and I'm not exaggerating. This always went through my mind. When you do like a double backflip, like you think about what happens if you don't get to turn and you fall on your head. Of course, you think about that. It's not like extreme sports people, they don't have fear. Every time I did a crazy trick, like my heart was like beating like crazy. And even though everybody else considered me to be immortal and not to be scared, I was scared every time. Like in 20 years of extreme sports, whenever I was on that ramp and I had to roll in and start my run when I was at a competition, for example, I was scared, I was nervous every time after 20 years. And it's the same when I do a webinar. Every time I have to do a webinar and I click on that button and I go live, my heart is beating like crazy. And then after like a minute, I start to relax. But I'm nervous every time. I think, okay, hopefully everything goes just fine. And no matter how experienced you are, maybe other people are more like cool, but to me, it's always exciting. and I'm a bit nervous and I need some time to adapt, like a couple of seconds at least.
It's like the interesting thing is in another podcast episode that I did, the guest kind of said that in his opinion, the distinguishing factor of people who are successful is that they are better at dealing with fear. It's not necessarily that they don't feel the fear.
Absolutely.
It's like they feel the same thing. They're just better at kind of like tuning it out, or how you said it so nicely, how to fall better, or how to kind of get back up faster. And I think that's a good lesson. It's the and it's kind of a sobering thought as well. If even people like you who have done dozens of webinars or podcasts and stuff like that are still nervous.
Absolutely. I think I've realized once that I feel my curiosity is stronger than my fear. So I can be a fearful person, but finding out what's next or what could happen or what could we achieve is way bigger. Like my passion for that is stronger than my fear. So I'm a fearful person because otherwise I wouldn't even think about what can go wrong. I wouldn't just care. So this is not what I am and who I am. I have fears, many to be honest, but I think about it and but I'm so curious and I just want to learn so many new things that I try to change myself, and I have to get out of the comfort zone and try it, even though it scares me a lot. So I think there's people that have less fear than I have, and I've seen them in extreme sports. They don't have that fear at all. But I felt I always was very good at knowing what I can do and what I can't do.
This interesting curiosity, like over fear, basically. So, but this is also like, if you talk about, like, you don't have all the answers when you start a new podcast or when you start a new event series. I mean, but if you're actually curious about, like, to see if it's going to work, and how you could make it work, it's just such a different mindset. And then you're also more confident, kind of bringing other people on board, because it's a journey. It's going to be exciting. That's interesting. So it's kind of curiosity takes over.
Absolutely. That's what always happens to me. This is why I now dig into audio branding, because I feel like I see this huge opportunity. I'm so curious. I want to learn more about it. I totally missed out on it in the past 20 years, I feel. And now I'm so excited about it that I dig into this topic and I want to try it out and test and see where this can lead us.
It's one thing that I would also like to dig into is when I see kind of how you present yourself on LinkedIn, but also in the podcast. When I listen to your podcast, there is a lot of kind of giving. There's a lot of like, how can I help you? How can I? So, can you speak a bit about that? Like, is that something that you do consciously, or is that kind of part of your personality, I guess? And why do you do it? Because the business world usually works different. People are looking out for themselves. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, for sure. I think it's part of my personality. I feel that I just like to share knowledge, that I like to help people. And in a way, I feel it's always coming back in a way. I don't expect the person that I give something to give it back to me, like in return, like one-to-one. So if person A gets something from me, I don't expect person A to give it back to me. But I feel, well, I've seen in my life that that at some point it's coming back to me, like, because people talk about it, or they say, hey, this person helped me once, or this is a cool brand. I know this person and that's very helpful. Connect with him. He can help you with podcasting, for example. There's so many people reached out and they listened to the podcast and they were like, I saw you are doing a podcast and I wonder what tool are you using? And then I write people like a long text and I'm like, yeah, I'm using this and this and this and this works, it doesn't. And so I just want them to succeed because I feel at some point this is coming back. And then also it's natural to me to do it. There's one example from my extreme sports world. Once there was this huge tournament in Germany, and then the distribution that sponsored me, that company, they called me and they said, hey, we have this distributor at the Frankfurt airport and his flight is delayed. It's not going today. It's leaving tomorrow to Brazil. And that person doesn't have a place to stay yet. And that person could go to a hotel. But I said, you live in Frankfurt. That was back in the days. Now I live in Berlin, but back in the days. And I was wondering if that distributor could stay with you. And I was like, well, yeah, I have all these rollerbladers staying over anyway. So there were some superstars at my house, like Brian Shima and others. Like Brian Shima is considered like one of the biggest stars, or was one of the biggest at that time. And then the distributor stayed at my house. He came to my house and he didn't know anybody. He didn't know me. I was like, hey, stay with us, hang out. And for him, it was so special. He couldn't believe, like, out of a mess where he had to stay at the airport or at some hotel lonely in Germany, he had to stay at a place where all like some of the famous rollerblades were hanging out, playing like Xbox and then have a beer. And he never forgot about that. And he said, hey, whenever you come to Brazil, I show you places. And I was saying, yeah, I will do that. Like not thinking about I would do it at some point.
Right.
Which I did a couple of years later. And I said, that Pablo was that guy. Like, hey, I'm coming to Brazil. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And he was so excited. And he said, do you remember back then, like how you helped me and I could stay at your house and you welcomed me very friendly? And I was like, actually, I don't. Because there were so many people. It was just so natural to me to do it. And when I came to Sao Paulo with a friend, like he picked me up from the airport. He showed me places I wouldn't have seen otherwise because he's a local and he was showing me places in Sao Paulo I wouldn't have seen otherwise. This is just the way it is when you go to a foreign country. And he organized a skating session with some locals and all this. And I will never forget that experience. And this is just happening because I just said yes. And I said, you can stay at my house. And I welcomed a person I've never met before. I couldn't remember even helping that person. And I know it's coming back. And this is just one example in life where this came back to me. This happened to me more times than I can even tell today. But I know when you help people, it's coming back to you in a way. This helps in the business world as well. This is inbound marketing, basically, right? You give,
right?
Rather than just asking. Like it starts with everything you're doing. When you build a landing page, and the first thing people see is like this huge form, and you ask thousands of things, and all this page is telling you is give me your data, rather than this is what I have for you.
Right.
It's a very different mindset to have, to focus on what you give. And then you see what's coming back. And then at some point, people will realize you are a giver rather than a taker. And then this principle of reciprocity will work. People will feel like, oh my God, I've consumed so much content from this person or from this company. I think I have to try this solution they are offering because I feel I have to give back. Now's the time. I have the money. I've grown. And I think I want to try this person. So you try this person or this product because you are top of mind and you're part of the relevant set because you already have conquered this place just by being a personal company that's giving. And I think this matters more than ever today to be this company or to be this kind of person and to focus on giving rather than just taking.
And also, like, I think one thing that is also important to mention here is like the opposite is draining. Like, it drains energy if you constantly try to guard yourself and kind of are always worrying about like what somebody might take from you, or like how you can gain an advantage and stuff like that. So as we say, kind of life is about the journey itself. It's like the journey is a lot more gratifying when you give, right? I mean, because it already feels better. So I'm, sometimes I'm wondering like why somebody like you stands out in that case, because why are there not more people actually engaging that way? Because it actually feels better, right? And one thing that is connected to that is that we also talked about in our last conversation is it kind of lets you create your own luck in a way, right? I mean, like, of course, there's always a certain randomness in life, but I think, like, as you say, like, when you constantly give, there's bound to come something back. I think it's like a law. And so in that sense, you can create some of your own luck, like, and whether that's how you described it, while traveling, you have a much better experience because you helped someone years ago, or whether that's in business,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you shared knowledge with me the last time we spent some time. I shared knowledge. Like I think it's coming back. And then we even realized we have a common friend, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
we realized we both know Dave Hertig, like another person from Zurich. So, this is a small world, isn't it? Like you realized, someone that someone knows, and you didn't expect that to happen, but it's a small world. And we all, I spoke to Dave and I told him that we spoke. So it's, things go their ways.
He wrote me back, and then he sent me like pictures of you and him in a stadium, and at some point where you were years ago or something like that.
In Canada, yes.
and already we have kind of created like, somebody outside of you and me has already had a good feeling because he like remembered and then probably talked through the pictures and like had a good feeling about it. We're kind of remembering it. So it kind of creates this ripple effect of like positiveness.
Absolutely. And now it's the three of us talking to each other, and it's a small network already. And then we all have a network, and it's growing. This kind of like network effect I think it's so important to just help people. And even though I'm doing a podcast, I would always help people being successful. That's why we published an ebook with HubSpot about podcasting, and I put everything in I knew at that time about podcasting. I put everything I knew into the new book that I'm publishing. I just want people to succeed, and I know it's coming back in a way. Even though I might be helping others to become a challenger or a competitor. This might happen, of course. This might happen. If you share all your knowledge, of course, people can take it and they become your competitor. But I think they won't forget. And at some point, the huge partnerships can just be based on that.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, one epiphany for me was really that a relationship, especially in business, it doesn't need to be transactional. It can actually be transformational for both people, but both people kind of need to take that step. And I mean, obviously, business is by nature, very transactional, but actually you can break out of that. And I mean, you're showing that. And that's also why I think it's like you're making a powerful example, both of you yourself as a person, but also for HubSpot out there, like HubSpot in my mind, I'm now kind of, because you're kind of representing HubSpot in a way, I also kind of look at that brand in like, oh, okay, they're kind of givers, and then it fits, right? As you say, like, inbound marketing kind of fits to what you put out and how you act out there towards other people. And so I would love to see more of like these more transformational relationships as opposed to always going for transactions,
Yeah, there's so much more you can do. And I think it's happening already. When I look at my LinkedIn feed,
Mm-hmm.
of course, there's many people, I think they do it a lot for themselves, but I also see many people that are so audience focused. Their content is so audience focused. They put so much
Yeah.
hard work into their posts. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you know Jens Polonsky from Greater.
Yeah.
It used to be Gedankentanken, and they renamed the brand. It's called Greater. Like, basically every week he has tool tips, or at least once a week a tool tip.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more than just, hey, try this tool. It's just, he's going so deep into like how he explains how it works. He makes proper screenshots. He makes like all these little notes to the screenshots. So you can easily understand how this tool works and what the benefit is. So it's very much focused on helping people to find the right tool to do your job. And I love his posts. And there's more people out there doing that kind of stuff. Of course, it helps you to build a personal brand. But what I take from this post is so valuable that it's more than just that person is trying to present. It's himself or herself.
Yeah.
It's, you can clearly see the love and passion for being social.
And I mean, as you say, I think like there's no need to feel bad that you get something back. I think there's just two ways of conducting business, and take the one that feels better, you know, in that sense. So if we shift gears a little bit towards resources, or how you kind of educate yourself, or how you learn about new topics. You just mentioned you want to think more about branding with audio. How do you go about that? Like there are many people in who are listening, who are, you know, lifelong learners and are interested in like how do you go about learning a new topic, or kind of diving into a new theme, if you want.
I'm pretty much a self-educated person in many ways. So whenever I'm interested in a new topic, I try to learn as much as I can by myself. So sometimes I just grab my phone and I go to Spotify or a different platform and just search for a term and see what kind of like podcasts pop up. I've done that lately I'm very interested in all the green tech and disruption topics in that sense. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's a good podcast to listen to? And I listen in and I see, okay, is this a good one or a bad one? Should I stick to it? I also love books. It's really interesting because a couple of years ago, I told my wife books are going away. It's like, there's no chance they will stick. iPads will be all over the place. But at some point I realized that isn't true. Like, the iPad isn't working for me as good as the classic book, where I can just make notes and put in like sticky posts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm that kind of person. And by that, I can really learn quick and like intense. So I like the classic books, podcasts. I read a lot online. So I try to find a proper source to learn more about the content. Then I have a great network where I can just reach out to people and ask them if they can share more about their experiences. And then I've realized at some point this year that sometimes you need people to help you and to find out what's really important to me and to grow as a person. I hired a coach. So, and I think this is one of the most important changes in my life, that I realized the good people need coaches. It's not like if you fail or if you're not good enough, you get a coach. But if you're good at something and you want to be better and you realize what your flaws are, it's very good to think about, okay, I need a coach. Like, I need this expert to help with me, because a good coach isn't doing the job for you. It's that person is just helping you to find your way, because that person has that kind of like framework and experience to trigger and help you. And I think this is what more people should think about, that they need coaches. They need coaches to become a better speaker, maybe. They need coaches to be a better leader. It's not that you failed. It's just, it shows that you can clearly find your flaws, and that you know that you're not perfect and you need someone to help you be better.
But I mean, it's so very interesting, actually. If we go back to sports, in sports, it is the most normal thing ever. I mean, you get a coach, and and I always have to smile a bit, like when there's this, like, I don't need that. Like, I don't. I mean, of course, like you get an outside view of like what's actually happening, and where you're good at, and like what and it's also often about a bit accountability, because like if you're anything like me, sometimes I say something and then a month later I forgot about it, that this was so important to me. But when there is somebody like nudging you, like, hey, 2 weeks ago you were talking about this, like, how is it going? And so this is something that also fits nicely into this analogy with sports. I mean, there it's the most normal thing. And I think one thing that I found is with coaches is, I guess there's like mentors and coaches, and I'm never sure exactly what the difference is. Like I think I'm oftentimes drawn to more on the mentor side, just because, like, if I find someone that is kind of where I want to go, like this person is already there and I can have a conversation with them on a regular basis, it helps me tremendously. Just also the confidence that something is possible, so because they've already done it and they tell you how they did it. And so this for me was always, whenever I did that, this was very helpful. And I love that you talk about the coaching thing, because I think more people need to sort of hear that it's not something bad, it's nothing wrong.
It's actually a growing business. It's huge, because more and more people realize coaching is a good thing. I'm not sure, have you read this book, $1 Trillion Coach?
I have not.
Like, it's my recommendation for everybody listening, because it shows that there's, like, they call him, I forgot the person's name, but he's like a secret weapon of Silicon Valley, like a person that no one knows about. But that coach, he was a football coach, but then became a coach for the Google founders, and then he was even working for Apple. So that person helped even some of the smartest people on earth to become better. And if you know that, then
right,
you should know about yourself. You could need some help to become better, because you need someone to challenge you and help you find out how you can become better. That person that worked with me, for example, because I'm so curious, I've already mentioned that, right? We spoke about my curiosity. So I always want to try new things, and that my biggest strengths in that way can be my biggest weakness, because I tend to take on too much at the same time.
Yeah.
So that is a big problem, because I love everything. I'm so curious. I want to try this. I want to try that. So for me, it's hard. And then it's hard to say no. But when I got coached, that person helped me to visualize what my whole world is, like private life, business life. And then that person asked me at some point, Ben, so where's you? Where are you? And you told me, like, what for you means like a perfect moment. But when I look at your life, I don't see this perfect moment. You're doing a lot of things, but where is this moment where you just sit down on a bench at the park and you read a book? This never happens in your life, but you said before that this is your perfect moment right now. Yeah. So this helped me a lot. And then also that person said, look at your life and then see what is taking away energy and what's giving you energy. And then we did the math. We just made crosses, and I've realized how many things I have that I do, and I think I love doing it.
Yeah.
But I realized it's taking energy. And then I realized there isn't a balance. Like I have more things taking energy than I have giving energy. And this is when it becomes a problem, even though you think it's a cool thing to do and it's fun. And at some point you realize you're just doing it because you're doing it for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, you end up being unhappy because you can't do everything right. And it means you are not happy. Everybody's not happy because you're just trying to hold all the balls in the air, but it's not really working well. So this was very important for me to keep in mind, is this taking energy or is it giving you energy? And if it's not giving you energy, maybe you should just stop doing it.
It's funny because the topic of energy management is the number one thing that comes up in this podcast. One guest, Kevin Indig, who is the VP of Content and SEO at G2, he kind of said at a certain point, if you're a high-performing individual and you have a lot of things going on, like your bottleneck will be your energy, and how you spend it and how you kind of compartmentalize certain days or certain parts of the days for focus or for relaxing and stuff like that. So it's interesting that this has become such a widely talked about topic, especially for people who, how Louis Grenier would say, maximizers. He calls people that are like trying to do the best in every situation, have too many things on their plates, which includes me in that case, kind of maximizers. And I think really the only way to kind of go about that is, one is learning to say no, and then managing the energy. We all have 24 hours, right? I mean, we all have the same amount, but how, like when you do something and how you do something and what you do, I mean, it's so important. And the kind of automation that we often run into is so difficult to see ourselves. And so a coach kind of can point it out to us and they're like, oh yeah, right. Right. I've been doing that for a year, even though, and I think I like it, but it actually takes energy away from me. That's interesting.
Absolutely. And maybe it wouldn't take energy away if you would do less and just decide to do it and other things you wouldn't be doing. But in my case, I've realized it's going to be it's stressful. I'm just running from like places to places because I do so much stuff. I train children to play football. I'm a football player myself, and then you have so many things in your life, and I tend to make my hobby my business, and I realized at some point, okay, you have to be careful, because if you make every hobby your business, then you don't have hobbies. It's all your business.
Good
and
point.
even if I'm a football player and I grow into like a leading role at the team, it's going to be a business again, because I take so much care of other people and the success of the team, and then it's going to be a business again, and and that happens at 8 p.m. at a training day, and it's after a day that you took care of your children, you went to your job, and again you are in this role, and at some point you have to find out if you can take that any longer, if you can be the leader everywhere, or if you're just, for once, you're just a person playing football.
Yeah, I think this is an important point to make. Like, I mean, we can't lead and make kind of businesses out of everything we do, even it feels so natural or like so thank you very much for your time. I think we slowly need to wrap up. Do you have some parting message that you would like to instill into the viewers and listeners, like motto of yours or something you maybe tell your the kids you coach at soccer or something like that? What are some? Do you have like a parting message that you want to?
Yes, actually, good point talking about the children and the team, because what I feel and what I teach the children is it's not about that one superstar that I want to have on the team. I don't want to have this one kid that's scoring and scoring and scoring while the others are just in the background. Winning in football, and even more these days, is team effort, right? Like looking at teams such as like Liverpool or Bayern München. It's not just that you have this one superstar, right? Or two superstars. It's a team effort. And even everyone from like the goalie to like the defender, midfield players, superstars, like everybody's so important to succeed in the end because, yeah, I mean, you can score 5 times, but if you at the same time, the opponent scores 6 times, like, and the defense just sucks or is falling apart, it's not working. So to me, it's very important. You have great talent on your team, but diversity matters and teamwork is more important than having this one genius that's basically ruin everybody's day every time. Because for me, it's important that if you want to grow and you want to make everyone on the team the best version of him or herself, it's very important you don't have someone on the team that's blocking everybody to grow and become that best version of him or herself. So I think that's the most important thing. This is also something that I tell people when I speak to them and they want to get hired for a position. I say, I see your great talent, but I'm not sure about your team capabilities. Like, are you able to adapt? Because what I see from you, like on social and everywhere, like you're a great person, but are you a team player? And that's the most important thing to figure out, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ben, thank you very much. Where can people learn more about you? Like, where do you want to direct people to?
Of course, LinkedIn always. You can easily find me on LinkedIn, Ben Harmanus. I'm on every social platform, but I focus on LinkedIn these days. As I mentioned, focus is very important. LinkedIn, of course, and listening on the Digital Helpdesk. We've become a team of hosts now, so I'm not the host of every show. As I said, teamwork makes the dream work. And listening on that podcast, and please connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben, for your time. I had a great time with our conversation. So thank you very much, and hopefully till next time.
Sandro, it was great talking to you. Great topics. And I hope it's useful for everyone listening.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers to you.